I'm Greg Johnson, and this is the deck that I like to call Black-Red Atogs. So when I first started playing, the first deck I had was in Mirrodin, and it had Atog, a bunch of artifact lands, and was maybe a little bit ridiculous. But when I first saw this card being spoiled, I knew that I had to build around it. So Ravenous Intruder, one in red for a 1/2, but you can sacrifice an artifact to get +2/+2. So that is one of your main threats. It's easily your most explosive threat and can kill people out of nowhere pretty easily. The other two threats are your Syndicate Trafficker and Scrap Heap Scrounger, which are a little less explosive but a lot more resilient, as this one can make itself indestructible, and the Scrap Heap Scrounger can just keep coming back over and over. And it also works well with the other two, because you can sack it to them, bring it back, sack it again, and use up your graveyard as much as you can. So the other big component of the deck is having artifacts that like to be sacrificed. So here you've got Terrarions, Implement of Combustions, and Implements of Malice. All of these are basically the same for this deck, as you're just sacrificing them to draw cards. And they have slight utility out of that, but their main goal is just being food for your two sacrifice outlets. You also have Servo Schematic, which is very good for this because it's 3 artifacts in 1, so it's 6 damage with your Ravenous Intruders for just a single card. Now, the main reason that we are running the Implement of Malice rather than another one of the 1-drop implements is for Scrap Trawler, which whenever an artifact, it or another artifact goes to the graveyard, you can get back an artifact with converted mana cost less than that. So we want to be able to move it down the chain of sack the 2-drop, get back a 1-drop, and sack the 3-drop, get back a 2-drop, and just keep chaining like that. Another one of the powerhouse cards we have is Marionette Master, which is much more expensive than the rest of the deck. But basically, whenever you play it, you can fabricate 3, and then whenever an artifact you control is put into the graveyard, your opponent loses life equal to the power of Marionette Master. So this can very easily just come down, become a 4/6, and then just kill your opponent without even having to get through by just sacrificing the rest of your artifacts. Speaking of getting through, you occasionally have a little bit of trouble with ground stalls because none of your creatures have trample. So for that, we have Key to the City, which can be used to make things unblockable and then get fed to it, sack it, kill them. In addition, you've got a little bit of removal in Fatal Push, which is almost always revolted, and Unlicensed Disintegration, which is almost always dealing with 3 damage. As for the mana base, it's pretty typical red-black. You've got Spire of Industries, which are also almost always active because of how many artifacts you have in here. And that's basically the deck.
Alright, this is Taylor. I was the one who played the deck to a valiant 1-3 finish. Don't ask where the 1 win came from. It was a bye. So, when I played the deck, I was really excited because it seemed like a cool, basically simple deck, but it can be very powerful. My problem was my draws weren't great. It was hard to get all the pieces together. A lot of times I had a Marionette Master stuck in my hand with 3 lands. So 21 lands. Marionette Master got stuck a lot. I loved Ravenous Intruder. It was actually more powerful than Syndicate Trafficker because Grasp of Darkness is a thing. So people would be like, all right, grasp your Syndicate Trafficker. And I'd be like, yep, that happens. And that just gets fed for Scrap Heap. I never once had a Scrap Heap Scrounger in my hand. That was weird. But Scrap Trawler was really fun, and I did get to 18 somebody. So I had Ravenous Intruder on the battlefield with 2 Servo Schematics. I played Key to the City, Implement Combustion, and a Scrap Trawler. So it was just like, okay, sack this, sack everything else, make it unblockable, sack that, and sap Scrappy, swing. And they're like, welp. I'm like, yeah, I did it. So much fun. And it was a cool deck. It was just, sometimes my draws were not so great. And the point is to try to get in damage. If I had to change anything, really, the combo of the deck is totally fine. It just needs a little more removal. That was just having the 2 pieces. I would probably go for like a set of 4 removal and a 2 and maybe take out, and this is the hard part, maybe Terrarion, and that's just because it comes in tapped. I don't know. Like, to me, it just needs a little more removal, and it would be much better because sometimes you're just like, they have a blocker. crap, and I don't have key to the city. So it might be go to 4 key to the cities, 4 fatal push, 2 unlicensed. So what's that math? So I would probably take out these and the Marionette Masters, because it was hard to get there. It was really hard to get to Marionette Master, because if I did, I would have won the game. No problem. So either do that combination or just add a little more lands and take out the Terrarions. Just because I think the Terrarions were just a little too slow. Yeah, they could get sacked and drawn a card, but it turned out if I wasn't drawing removal at that point, I was not doing great. And these two do the same thing. So yeah, that's my opinion. Let's move to the sideboard.
All right, so here we've got the sideboard. So first big thing is 2 Walking Ballista and 2 Transgress the Mines. These are specifically to help out against the Saheeli combo deck, because they can just kill you on turn 4 if they need to. So you can have just a Walking Ballista sitting on 1, and that means they can't actually combo you out, and a Transgress the Mine can help pull out the pieces when you need it. Transgress the Mine is also pretty solid against any control decks you run across, so you can take out their towers, their counter spells before they've got a chance to ruin your day. One of the big problem decks for this deck is black-green, because, as Taylor was saying, the Grasp of Darkness is very good against you. So against them, Herald of Anguish comes in because it blanks a lot of their removal and can end the game very quickly. In addition, you've got a little more removal on the sideboard, specifically to take out some of the bigger threats, as snakes that have gotten a bunch of counters, Verdur's Gear Hulks, stuff like that. So against smaller threats, you've got Incendiary Sabotage, which is an initial cost to cast it. You have to sacrifice an artifact, which is almost trivial for this deck to do. And as it turns out, 3 damage at instant speed can take care of a lot of the problems in this format. In addition, you've got one of Filigree Familiar, just another little hedge against aggro, gain a little life, block there, draw a card. And as you know, Incendiary Sabotage only deals 3 damage, which doesn't take care of some of the vehicles in this format. So for that, you've got Release the Gremlins, which also doubles as just taking care of a lot of problem artifacts in this format. Aether Flux Reservoir can take care of that. Marvel can help take care of that. There are a lot of artifacts running around in here, so that's very useful.
Taylor here again, just to go over the sideboard. I thought Walking Ballista was a great addition, especially if you got the Scrap Trawler out, because like if you sacrifice anything, you get Walking Ballista back, which is just so sweet. Transgress the Mind was useful. I loved Herald of Anguish, but like the problem with Marionette Master, it was hard to cast. It's easier because you have Improvise, but you still have to have double black, and sometimes that's an issue. And not all the time, but just sometimes. Unlicensed Disintegration came in most of the time, so that's why I think it deserves a main deck slot. Incendiary Sabotage, I think, is a good sweeper. I never had a chance to bring it in because I never really faced any big aggro decks, but at instant speed, that's pretty sweet. Filigree Familiar, if we're putting Unlicensed into the main board, I would put more of those in the sideboard, just because against aggro, it's okay, I gain life, then I draw a card. Cool. Or I gain life, sack it, +2/+2, and I draw a card. It's just sweet. And Release the Gremlins, this should be in every sideboard for red. Ever. Even if you're playing vehicles, you should be playing this for other vehicles decks. But that is our deck tech for this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll start voting for the next deck tech, and see you guys at FNF.